Here is another example of a page on my e-book or iBook regarding the petition in the making. This is section 7, and this one has a heading of Silence of the Town Council. Actually, I'm more disappointed than not about our politicians. They always manage to break your heart. So this one is showing picture of the Delta Municipal Council, the Corporation of Delta. I have had mixed feelings about my council. I like it that the pesticides are not encouraged in private towns and not used for areas under the corporation for weed eradication. Yet, I feel exasperated at their refusal to face up to glyphosate, RoundUp, etc., the most used toxic chemical in the planet, and one that is increasingly evident of being causing all kinds of damage, along with a few other pesticides and toxins. But this glyphosate's use in our agriculture, forestry, and elsewhere within Delta, that is forcing people to be exposed to this chemical, and yet the council decides to stay silent. And I have had quite a few emails that almost always go unanswered. I feel exasperated and I feel mad as hell about this double standard. So I have written a lot of letters, not just to municipal town council members, but to MLAs, to MPs, to our ministers in the BC provincial government, and I preserve them all, and I'm going to collect them and publish it in the book, so that other people can take probably some examples from there and start pushing their own politicians. I am pretty convinced that no good policy change will ever come from any politician just by requesting them to look at this data or that data. That change will only come when the blinking politicians are scared out of their wits that they will lose their position and the job if they don't do it, because the people will boot their sorry asses into the bloody ocean. I'm convinced that that's how it will work, and that's why my job is to at the moment try to influence other Canadians who need to get off their own respective asses to address this issue and start confronting their do-nothing politicians. So if I sound harsh, it's not directed entirely on Delta Corporation councillors, but they are the closest at hand, and it has not been a pleasure writing to them or trying to talk to them. I did invite the mayor and the councillors, as well as the MLAs, as well as many others, to consider joining me to meet Minister Carla Qualtrough regarding a petition that glyphosate safety records be released to the people. It is interesting for me to have to mention that probably the councillors don't know that although glyphosate has been approved by Health Canada, and Health Canada keeps touting that it's safe and it's the next best thing to sliced bread, but in all these 30 years that it has been approved, the safety records of this chemical has never been released to the people. Never. As I understand law, and I am not a lawyer, I'm just a rational thinking human being, and as I think all the municipal councillors should be, if the safety record of a document cannot be released to the people, my understanding of the law is the product itself also cannot be released. In this regard, I have, of course, some experience, and this petition is one part of it. But these municipal councillors, they are very good at, not agreeing to do what I think they should do. They always weasel and wiggle their way out of a commitment, as long as they don't have to take a stand on a issue that is glaring at their face, that is devastating for the land and the future. They will not take a stand because quote unquote, it's not my job. So, I will read this part to you. Silence of the Lambs was a famous movie. I have not seen it, but I am given to understand that it was a psycho thriller. No idea what a lamb had to do with the story. No link to the movie and no relation to lambs, but what we have in our political circles is a crippling inertia among many elected government officials from taking a just and honest stand on difficult issues. It appears as if many politicians wish to be spared from facing difficult questions so that they do not have to take a stand in public. I believe in my heart that many of them, or some of them, actually know what is just and right stand on an issue, but would still like to avoid making a statement or taking action on it, because the result of standing up for an urgent and just cause, such as presence of dangerous herbicides in our food system and in our forest, could make him uncomfortable. Powerful forces might target the politician and endeavor to have him or her defeated in the next election. Election funds might dry up. It might put stress on cozy alliances and friendships. Who knows what all reasoning a reluctant politician can have for not looking at an important but difficult issue in the eye without flinching and taking a stand on a right side of an issue for a change. Their job is to protect Canadians. Unfortunately, sometimes all they do is protect their own political career. Take for instance issues of testing our food crop that is grown within Delta or sold in our stores for concentration of glyphosate. This was not easy to do earlier, but since last year, more and more labs, some located next door in Burnaby, BC, will test our food, processed and unprocessed, for glyphosate. It is neither illegal nor costly for a government to start testing and collecting data. I should not even have to point this out to the municipal council. The issue is so obvious for any town touting to be environmentally conscious and mindful of passing at least part of our biodiversity on to the next generation without exterminating it completely. We know glyphosate is not only a probable carcinogen like WHO declared, but a lot worse, and not just with cancer. We already know the censoring and vendetta conducted around the world on any lab or scientist that dares to explore possible links between this chemical and a host of autoimmune diseases. We suspect we know the mechanism through which this damage is done. We also know that no scientist is allowed to verify this independently. A monthly budget of a few $1,000s should be enough to start testing a handful of crops, processed food, soil samples and water by the year end, and by the year end to get a few dozen lab tests done. New labs are offering such services right next door in Burnaby. In a few years of data collection, a pattern begins to emerge or might begin to emerge. We should know the pesticide load in parts of Delta and its seasonal variations. Interested research scientists could then check if there is or there is not an onset of rashes, skin problems, stomach problems or other ailments in children, and death or reduction of small animal populations such as frogs, lizards and local birds during seasons when concentration of glyphosate peaks. These results could be placed in a public domain for residents, citizens, research scholars and interested parties to check, and for the public to decide for themselves what they like or dislike and what, if anything, they would like their government to do about it. But unfortunately, I am yet to have a single member of Delta Corporation consider this or show interest, not to me, and as far as I know, not to anyone anywhere. Why? When are we going to have a few politicians that will prove themselves to be a little more than a stool pigeon. When are we going to have politicians that do not break our hearts? I know many people approach politicians for personal favor of one kind or another, but I want nothing for myself, or my family, or my friends. I only wanted the politicians to do something that is in their job description already about protecting the people and the land. Is that too much to ask?